Chapter 11. Two-headed snake rolls. No more work for 2 days while we try to get the automedic installed. Give us time to shop for things for the spare room, Mia said. We need to watch the installation, Kira said. So we can see exactly what they do, Kyra added. Shopping now, while I organize the installation, Cal said. They won't start quickly. He was right about that. 200,000 for installation and it wouldn't even begin for about 20 more hours. With the women eagerly looking for furnishings, he wanted to see his agent alone. Seeing prison job done good, Mr. Slee said as Cal came close. Still waiting for the Imperial Guards to haul us off. We caused 4 pirate ships to explode. Pirates, no one liking. Cal shook his head. Something not right about that job. Imperial warship stayed in the distance all the time. Don't want to go back to there anytime soon. Waiting safer job you being now. Land buying happening. Papers complete soon, maybe 4-5 days. We're getting an automedic installed, and that will take a couple of days. Too rich you getting. Too big loan I getting, Cal said, both men laughing. Considering the vast area of the bazaar, he found the women quite easily. Maybe that was because he knew what they were looking for, since they had been talking about it every chance they got. Apparently, a bed had already been selected, and the discussion now was on a wardrobe. Nothing else for him but to keep in the background and wait. Then it was bedding and deciding on the delivery. All that shopping called for a meal, and that took another hour. We should look at hover scooters, Kira said after sweets. Best we know how much they cost, Kyra added. They're too dangerous, Mia said. You'll fall off and break your legs. But we'll have the automedic now, Kira said, leaving Mia shaking her head. And you'll need one too so you can watch us. You should be on my side, Mia said toward Cal. You want them safe, don't you? They'll have a lot of fun with them, and I bet you can easily beat them. He hadn't really expected them to be so expensive, they were only a small frame on a hover base after all. There were some cheap ones, but they really did look dangerous. The better ones started at 10,000, and the ones with nice seats, smart racing stripes and guards were closer to 20. He noticed even Mia's face a little down after that. Time to go back and set up that spare room, he said. Get everything ready in case we get another job. Arranging the spare room took more time than he expected to. Then it was decided the room needed a nice rug, and the twins decided their room needed a rug too, and that meant another trip to the bazaar. Cal was well tired after all that, but it took the others longer until they calmed enough to sleep. The installation crew consisted of 2 men who were at the ship bright and early, a large pod with them, and with eager helpers. The pod contents were unloaded and stacked in the freight hold while the workers measured the empty room. Another hour and the main portion of the automedic, the treatment bed and all its machinery, was set against one side of the room, and the remaining portion, a long narrow control board with matching long screen, was fixed to the opposite side of the room. Then there were hours of fitting wire harnesses between the 2 parts of the machine as well as making sure the machine was firmly fixed to the ship's hull. The twins helped with adding wires to the main ship's power and computer, and by mid-afternoon, it was testing time. Seeing the screen lighting up had some cheering, but then the installers set to work calibrating everything. The twins so close they were really in the way, but in another way, Cal was happy for them to be there. Another hour and the automedic was pronounced ready for real work, and there was a race between the twins who would try it first. Kira won, and scampered up to lie on the test bed. Some buttons pressed and the machine was alive, a probe thing whirring over her from head to toe while the large screen showed images of the interior of her body. On the left of the image was her details and measurements, as well as a list of things the machine had decided was wrong. From his spot in the doorway, the only thing Cal saw highlighted in red was a small spot on Kira's left backside, and it was simply marked with the letters A1. What's A1? Kira asked. She'd been glued to the screen ever since she lost the race to be first patient. Implant, the installer said. Numbers are not a problem. Machine is working well. I've got one too, Mia whispered into Cal's ear. Had to get it when I got my pilot's certificate. You want to go? Not until we're alone. Me too. Another 10 minutes and the machine was declared fully working, the men keen to pack up their tools and leave. Trainer be back in the morning to explain how it works, one of the men said as he left for the day. With all the ship's hatches locked, the twins began their description of the day's work. There were two things they wanted to change. First was the connection of the medic to the ship's computer and therefore through the transponder to the Imperial database. The second was they had noticed while the men were doing the setup of the additional surgery pack, that there was a menu where the serial number of that pack had to be entered. The next section on the menu was a place to enter a number for a 1. We're thinking that is to allow access to remove that implant, Kira said. And I don't want it inside me. We're going to try to crack that password, Kira said. But we'll have to remove that data cable to the main computer first. Wait until they finish with the installation, Cal said. Then I'll help you get rid of that connection. Maybe wait until we're away from this planet first. Professor Frank might know, Kira said. I wouldn't want to ask him something like that over the terminal, Cal said. I think we'll be visiting him soon, Mia said. I must be getting as suspicious as you lot, but I want my implant removed too. Can we call him and say about the land and medic, but only generally, Kira asked. Just send a message, Cal said. He might be at work now. Cal was woken by the noise of excited women talking about the professor. He had answered their message and was free to visit them in about 3 more days, the exact time being the cause of the loud discussion. Tell him we'll see him then, Cal said, still half asleep. He tried to return to sleep, lying still while around women talked, so he was not in the best of moods when the automedic trainer called in the morning. We need a patient, the trainer said, looking at Cal. He seems sick enough. Tired, Cal said, but with 3 women agreeing he was the best patient, he had no choice. Using the stool that was supplied with the machine, Cal was encouraged to get up on the treatment table and lie on his back. At least with the display screen on the opposite wall, he could look over and see the results himself. That was if women were not crowding in the way. The trainer was clearly going to only teach the women, and he took great pains to explain how to activate the machine, and then how to position the patient. Since this was the compact version, the patient had to be moved for some of the procedures. The machinery could only work on the top and one side of a patient at a time. For 3 million, Cal thought better. Then the trainer talked the women through the main scanning section and invited them to try. The machinery word and a picture of Cal's body and organs grew on the screen. Any problem will highlight in red, the trainer said as the scan proceeded. There. Kira called. In his man parts. Early stage cancer, Mia said pointing to the list on the left side of the screen. Good, the instructor said. Something to fix. Lucky you had the surgery pack. That was not lucky at all, Cal thought. And I don't want my man parts cut by an untested machine. Press there and it will give you the exact procedure you need to follow. Undress the patient, Kira read aloud. Lie him on his back and separate his legs. I'll do it, Mia said. We'll watch and learn, Kira said keenly. Do I get a choice? Cal asked. No, 3 said in unison. He got back to the floor and removed his clothes, the women pretending to turn away, but the moment he was naked and back lying on the table, the 3 were hovering over him pointing out how they wanted him to position his legs. When you press to continue, he will be briefly restrained and anesthetized. Then when he feels nothing, the surgery will automatically proceed. Who wants to start it? Mia was closest to the control panel. Cal saw her finger out, and then he was not sure where he was and what was happening until the room cleared and he had 3 women's heads peering into his. He's awake, Kira said. It went perfectly, Mia said. No blood and no trouble. That was the laser scalpel, Kira said. So smooth and fast. Not even a scar, Mia said. Look. Cal cautiously attempted to lift his head, but there was no pain and he felt great. He looked down trying to find where he had been cut, but nothing. "I'll show you," Kyra said, pointing. "Your man parts right there." "Your man parts will be as good as new," Mia said, smiling and trying not to laugh. "You can put your clothes on now." "I think you know how it works now," the trainer said. "All that's left is for me to sign the installation certificate for the lone people, and it's all yours." "He shouldn't captain the ship until the drugs have left his system," the man said as he was leaving the ship. "Half a day should be enough. You can stay here and rest while we go back to the bazaar for some extra things for the kitchen," Kyra said as soon as the trainer left. The other two were nodding, and he decided their idea was the best possible one, even though he didn't think anything else was needed in the kitchen. However, a good rest would do wonders for him. 2 more days of being parked in the grounds of the bazaar while nothing happened. The ship had enough decorations scattered through as though it was an advertisement for a fancy house. All the screens had been personalized to include images of monsters behind the main menus. The auto kitchen menu now included new creations like 2-headed snake rolls, that the twins had recreated from the carnival with a modified food recipe. Cal risked trying one, and decided by the third that it was a great meal. He'd even made a trip to Mr. Slee to see about new jobs. Quiet time it being. All coming good soon. Cal wasn't so sure about it being so quiet for everyone, since he was watching ships around taking off loaded with freight. Maybe he needed a new agent. And then he got the message they were waiting for. "Finished work for 2 days starting tonight, 1800. We'll be there by 14:30 local," Mia said. "But I can go slower." "Well, let's get going," Cal said. "It won't matter if we are a little early." An hour before the specified time, and the Sea Stallion settled on the parking area of the twins' old university, main hatch open, but everyone stayed inside while they watched the deserted landing area for signs of life. It wasn't until the exact time, when Kira spotted Professor Frank walking toward them, a travel bag swapping between hands every few steps. He soon had extra hands to help carry, but he didn't slacken his pace until he was right up to the ship. "Not much time," he said. "Much to do. He can settle while we get into orbit," Cal said. "All hatches locked and ready to go." The ship was halfway up to orbit before the professor's luggage was stowed and he was back in the control room and coming close to Cal. "I don't want to seem too pushy, but time is short and if we could go to New Yankee 7 Planet 3, we can discuss things while we wait there." "Course selected. We'll enter ether space as soon as we can," Mia said. "I like the spare room," the professor said. "Even better than mine in the university." All the rest of the way into orbit the twins told all about how they chose and placed all the room interiors. Cal was sure the professor had more important things to tell, but that would have to wait. The hours of traveling in ether space were silent other than the twins occasionally calling status details of shield and drives. Immediately they were in orbit of Planet 3 of New Yankee 7, the professor sent a message to Orbis, the man who had provided their new fuel rods. At last they were all able to talk. "I better tell you all that has happened since last visit." "We did exciting things too, apart from fixing the ship," Kira said. "We transported frozen pirate men and we blew up 4 of their ships with our shields," Kyra added. Professor Frank was given a blow-by-blow story of the cryo-prison job as well as the visit to the new land and the idea it would be a great place to race hover scooters around. "You had important things to tell us," Cal said when the stories were mainly told. "I do, but what you've told me adds to what I can tell you. Things are not going well in some areas." That had the others taking more attention. "You know, or well your engineers know, that my tenure at the university was never particularly secure. Some in high places felt I was teaching too much. There were things the students didn't need to know." He looked over to the twins, but for once they stayed quiet. "After our last trip, one of the parents complained to the principal that I had taken his precious son for a trip into space without a signed permission slip. As if a spaceship engineer needs a permission slip. Anyhow, after a lot of discussions, I was told that to avoid further issues, it would be best if I chose to leave the university at the end of this semester. No. No, the girls yelled together. You are the best ever teacher, Kyra added. So 6 weeks and I'm looking for a new job, but it's not all bad. Things might fit together well, but first I need to explain some of the politics of our rulers that you're now running up against. Politics I can do without, Cal said as the professor's terminal beeped with a message. Oh. Orbis is awake and alone. The professor quickly connected a call. Orbis, you old rogue. You fit enough to allow for a visit. The returning voice sounded tired. We'll land near your office, so see if you can come shuffle out to join us in this ancient ship to see the new decorations. I'll be waiting for you. He's in more trouble than me, the professor said when the call terminated. Can we land near last time? Mia landed near the metal-clad building they'd parked last time. Everyone stayed in the ship this time, watching Orbis walk toward them, his back bent. Maybe the man was just tired, but Cal felt it was more than mere tiredness. Even as he entered the ship, his pale face and baggy eyes said more than lack of sleep. They bought you a present for your help before. The professor had Orbis by his side. Down the passage and on the left. Third door. The best model and all the extras fitted. Mia was next, and she closed the door behind her, so everyone else was left standing close trying to hear behind the screen. First footsteps. A lot of them. Then Orbis saying no woman had seen him naked for a few many years. Then more steps and then electrical beeps and even more beeps came from the room. It didn't do that many beeps with you, Kira said to Cal. We should go and see. Most likely he wasn't as sick as Orbis, the professor said softly. Even assistant nurses need to wait until they're called, Cal said. We've been promoted, Kyra said gleefully. The door opened and Mia stood in the way. It seems like we have many issues to heal. The list goes on, and I think it will take a long time on the machine. Does he want to start? The professor asked. He wants to talk to you first. Mia stood aside to allow the professor to enter, then closed the door behind her. If it's such a big job, she'll need us to help her, Kyra said. We've seen man parts before. Wait till she asks, Cal said, but really he wanted to see now too. They didn't need to wait much more. This time when the door opened no one was blocking the way and the small room was soon crammed with helpers. The machine has prioritized the work, Mia said. See where it has places for breaks and rest. We'll only be able to do part of that list today. The immediate issue is surgery accessed from his back. Deep and serious. Mia's face told Cal how bad the situation really was. He is prepared to start today, Professor Frank said. I'll help him move. That's a job for the assistant nurses, Kira said. You men go and wait, we know what to do. Cal stood in the doorway a while as Mia pressed the button to start the automedic. The patient seemed to instantly be locked into place and metal probes scurried around tracks overhead. On the screen on the opposite side of the room the image of Orbis showed red patches all over his body. Some sort of growth, Cal thought. A lifetime of mining was not always a long life. Cal had seen enough, so he joined the professor back in the control room. That would be the first medic he's seen in tens of years. Hard to find one out here. Stubbornness mainly. That and cost. A medic out here is priced as though the patients are as rich as those in the capitals. And worry doesn't make things any better either. Tell me about this land you're getting. At least we can do that. I can show you on the map. Mia marked it on her maps with yellow flags. With some difficulty, Cal found the place on the map, struggling to find the setting to highlight the hill in the middle, but getting it enough so both them could see it. Pan around a bit. What's close around? Mainly dirt. Nothing other than brown visible from the top of the hill. But other people would own that land around. I suppose, however my plan is to move the wrecked Mark III's we've found to here to use for spares, and doing that will make this land look a bit like a scrapyard. I can't see that being attractive enough to have other people wanting to join us. Good thought. And if any neighbor wants to complain, we could always offer to buy them out. I was also thinking, Cal said. To make sure there is nothing valuable made permanent there, so we could move if we had trouble or a better place becomes free. Who's been playing with my maps? Mia said, startling Cal and coming close to twiddle the joysticks to reposition the screen. That's how it really looks like. Orbis, the professor asked softly. Riddled with cancer, Mia whispered. Minor other trouble, but nothing we can't fix. A lifetime of mining, the professor said, sighing heavily. I thought that. The girls are watching carefully, they're good at the work. So good I'd even trust them, Professor Frank said. I'm sure we'll spread the work over 1 or 2 more trips. You able to do that? We will, Cal said. The least we can do. 2 more hours of work and the automedic called a break. 5 hours rest for the patient, it said. Kira came with the report. He wants to go to the bathroom, so we're taking him. Still naked and supported with an assistant nurse each side, Orbis was guided into the bathroom. A while after, he was led toward the newly completed spare room and then everyone was called in to see him lying on the bed. He still looked ill, his face seeming even paler than before. Thank you all for what you're doing for me, he said, his strong voice now feeble and low. Frank. You've been a true friend. This isn't the end, you old rogue. Wait till the medicine has worn off and you'll be as fit as you were when I first met you. He needs time to sleep, Mia said. I can't continue unless he's rested properly. Everyone out, Kira said. Let us assistant nurses take care of our patient. 5 hours of rest for everyone and then Orbis was back in the automedic, on his back this time, and the surgery continued. Another 2 hours cutting and stitching and plastering and Orbis was sent for more rest. 12 hours this time, and again in the spare room for the duration. This time, during the patient's sleep, everyone was together in the control room and serious discussion was possible, the professor ready to tell. Your experience with that prison job has confirmed something I have been suspecting for a time now. There is a group within the Imperial system who are wanting to take over control. Is that something for us to worry about? Mia asked. Normally no, but you are one of the people who move all around the galaxy and come in touch with a lot of different people. That makes those in control watch you carefully, and in your line of work you will be working with people from both factions, and therefore watched by both groups. Those pirates are clearly part of the opposing group in some way. You pleased the ruling faction by doing that job and destroying those ships, and displeased the others by doing the same. Whatever you do, you will be upsetting one group. So we can't win then, Cal said. In a way. The only side you can always please is your own side. You need to be strong enough, or hidden enough, to stand alone against both sides. It's both a curse and a blessing. Most people are not strong enough to survive this. It's easier to stay doing safe jobs to safe destinations, and hope by pleasing the ruling group you will survive, but I think you all are stronger than that. We're only one small ship, Mia said. Surely it is better for us to stay safe. Said by a pilot that can beat the best the Imperial fleet could bring and destroy 4 other ships using no weapons, and survive undamaged. But the twins. They need to be safe. But would they be happy cocooned away from everything slightly risky? Don't they revel in being on the sharp edge of what is possible? And your captain? The man who risked all to chase a dream. Let me tell you what I found when I looked into all your histories after our first meeting. The information that told me my future, and Orbis's future too. It began with a man that had a dream. A dream to have his own spaceship and sail to the edges of the universe to see what adventures he would find there. That man learned and worked and never let his dream go. One time a used spaceship dealer convinced our man he could afford to buy an older starship and make a living moving freight. And when that man saw that the ancient ship he was being suckered into buying was an old battle cruiser, there was no way he was not going to buy it, even if it meant a loan period longer than the ship would be expected to last for. That's you, Kira said, pointing at Cal. That man then found the only agent that would deal with a vessel like he had. Then, when that man needed a pilot, unlike other people, he didn't take the cheapest pilot he could find, he looked carefully for the absolute best one, and he found a way to employ her, whatever the cost. I asked a ridiculous fee and he agreed, Mia said, nodding. She's worth every credit, Cal said. And when he needed an engineer, on the way to find the one he was told, that man found a pair of girls that were not even graduated, and yet were the best engineers a captain could ever want. I looked at all this and I knew I had either found the luckiest man in the universe, or maybe I had found a man who the fates had guided. Whatever it was, I knew I needed to be part of that future. What do you suggest we all do? Cal said when no one else had spoken. Exactly what you've been doing, but with knowledge and caution and power. Look at the resources you have accumulated, and choose carefully how you will use them. You have a very powerful ship that can be improved even more. You have the best pilot I know of. You have the best engineers any ship could want. And you can have a couple of old men who would be willing to help you set up a full maintenance base and help you modify your system so you won't need to depend on the Imperial system. You have land with room to store and overhaul ships, and people that know where you can acquire the things you might need but can't easily find. And if you find more people like you that want to be free, you will have the means of forming yourself into the head of a large independent fleet. Now that can't be a bad thing, can it? It's a great dream, Cal said. A dream that's powering along, the professor said. You don't know what I see ahead. Things seem to be happening around you that will make your dreams real. Orbis here will soon need to flee his base. He has much of what is needed for a big base. I'm soon out of a job and I know how to run maintenance for a fleet. Your position will soon be very strong. Too strong for others to fight you or push you out of work. Your agent is nearly broke. He'll soon accept your invitation to manage freight for your company. Orbis knows where to get freighters cheap and within another year you could have quite a fleet of ships in the air. All you need to decide is the name. I think your women have already chosen the fleet colors. Orange, yellow and white, Kyra said loudly. With a large stallion, Kira added. They will stand out, Cal said cautiously. People will know who we are, Kira said. Better to be bold than hide. So I suppose it will be called Stallion Freight, Mia said. Maybe the Stallion line, Cal said. In case we do more than just freight. We'll work at designing a logo, Kira said. All help, Cal said. We need to make sure it is the best we can do. That's your motto, Mia said. The Stallion line always the best we can do. Professor Frank smiled as he watched the discussion. There is one thing you should remember. When the fates are on your side, other people will sense it and many will want to help you. Those people will be precious to your future, but watch those that are jealous or afraid of your success. Now maybe it's time for a snack. Stay here, Kira said. We'll get it. You don't know what we want, Professor Frank said. We do, Kira said as the pair scampered off. Two-headed snake rolls, Mia said smiling. They're really nice. We had them at the carnival. They don't sound very nice. Just close your eyes. They definitely taste better than they look. Orbis surfaced midway through his rest time. No food for you until we're finished, Assistant Nurse Kyra said severely when the man had a hand out toward the remains of the plate of rolls. You look better, Professor Frank said. Feel better too. Hungry but. The next surgery is on your throat, Mia said. Must be sure your stomach is empty. Orbis shook his head. What have you decided, Frank? He said, sweeping his eyes around everyone in the control room. Still deciding on the company name and waiting for the land transfer to go through. I have 6 more weeks at the university, and I'm guessing you have 1 to 3 more months. You need 1 or 2 more periods on the medic, Mia said. And I still have to devise a way of activating the implant removal without triggering the Imperial system, the professor said. And you? Orbis said, facing directly into Cal's eyes. How are you with letting some strangers direct parts of your business? Not happy at first, but I came to see that with that help, I could achieve good things quickly, and get the life I wanted for my family. All the things I've been told were to come are only things I would have eventually wanted to do myself. The real difference is time. Time is critical for some of us now, Orbis said. Maybe we should speed things up even more. How about we all go to my office for a bit and do some business? Clothes first, Mia said. Back in his office, Orbis was fully in charge, all signs of illness gone. Now let us find a nice home and workshop to put on that land you're getting. Used spaceships for sale, he muttered, manipulating his office screen. Freighters. It seemed like he was selecting things to display. Come around and look. It was a listing of ships for sale, line after line of them. Many more than Cal thought would be for sale, but the listed prices were eye-wateringly high. What you need to know about used cargo ships is the owners all think they are worth more than they are. There are no line of people waiting to buy a clapped-out old ship that has nearly empty fuel rods and thrusters pitted to high heaven from hard use. Remember, for them to make money, these things need to fly 24 hours every day, and always with full loads. Just a basic service would run 5 million, and it would still be an old hull. Even the wreckers on Grand Bazaar won't pay nothing for these ships. Cost more to scrap than they get from the bits. Frank. Which one of these you fancy? The men studied the details of the offerings, paring it down to 2 ships. Both huge freighters. Old, but with well-made hulls, Frank said. Why get a big ship? Kira asked. A ship has accommodation, food preparation, water generation, shields to use as perimeter protection and a large clear freight hold to turn into a maintenance hangar, Orbis said. And you can fly it into place, Professor Frank added. And move it again if you find a better place. But they are so expensive, Kira said. Watch and learn, Orbis said. Watch a master at work, Frank said, smiling. Orbis was calling the first ship's contact number, and everyone else stayed quiet in anticipation. The connection made and a middle-aged man's face on the screen. Looking to buy that Mark 87 freighter you got for sale, Orbis said without any preliminary pleasantries. 100,000 flat. Payment when the ship is delivered to Grand Bazaar. Everyone heard the explosion from the screen and Orbis sat waiting for it to subside. How do I know the thrusters will hang in long enough to get here, and will the power last that long anyway? The explosion was much less. 200,000 and you call at my base and fill the ship with freight on the way to Grand Bazaar. Can't do better than that. Cal heard, I'd need better, from the screen in a more subdued tone. He's desperate, the professor whispered directly into Cal's ear. You know of a small local runabout you could stick in the hold as well. Make the trip worth it. Something with some life still left in it. The call now turned to deals with runabouts. 250,000 for a red and white colored 4-seat machine. 450 for the pair, Orbis said loudly, or maybe I can offer you an even more attractive offer. How about 5 new rods, no questions asked. They come in pairs, the seller said quickly. You drive a hard bargain, Orbis said. 6 it is then, but these ships better be in great condition. They continued to arrange delivery details with Orbis saying he had an express ship that would take the delivery crew from Grand Bazaar to wherever they wanted to go. That's how you do deals, Orbis said loudly when the call ended. 2 ships delivered in time to set up your new base. You will be able to get them from the bazaar. I didn't want them to know where they were really going to end up. Maybe while you are here you should put some of the special goods in your ship, enough to fill that storeroom anyway. Come on Frank, we'll work out what you need. Everyone followed Orbis to the locked cage in the back of the building while Professor Frank selected boxes for the others to carry back to the Stallion. Nothing was opened, but Cal was sure some of the boxes were power rods. Then there was more discussion on how to handle the delivery of the freighter, and then it was time for Orbis to go back into the automedic. This time it was work deep in his throat, and even though it lasted less than 15 minutes, the machine said no more work for at least a day. Orbis couldn't speak when he recovered and took to the bed to rest again. In that time the professor and the twins delved into the workings of the automedic in an attempt to find a safe way to bypass the lock on the machine removing imperial implants. Their verdict was not one Cal really wanted. That password only activates a link back to the Imperial Medical Database, and it's that message that allows the removal to progress. "We'll try and work a way around it," Kira said. "We know we can find a way," Kyra added. "Can't we just cut it out with a knife?" Cal asked. "My bottom is delicate," Kyra said, Kira nodding. "So's mine," Mia said, "but I want it out." "How about if we cut the implant out then put ourselves in the medic and let the machine heal the wound?" "That might work well," Kira said slowly. "But the pain. It's very close to the skin, and I'm tough. Anyhow, there are some things that deaden the skin. We might be able to find some of that, and it would only be for a short time." "I think you've found the best way," the professor said. "I need mine out too, and I'm willing to be the guinea pig." "We'll look for a scalpel and deadening liquid in the bazaar," Mia said. "If you do it, keep the implant with you. Make it like it is still inside you so they don't know it's out. We're not ready to disappear yet." 2 hours and Orbis wandered out of his room. "Back in a week for another session," Professor Frank said. "Providing you can manage it," he added to Cal. Cal nodded and Orbis mumbled. "You can eat now," Mia said, but Orbis only held his throat and shook his head. "We'll prepare some two-headed snake rolls and you can warm them up later," Kyra said. "You don't want to miss them." Some more resting time and Orbis was escorted back to his office and the Sea Stallion was set to leave, with a course back to the university for Professor Frank. The Sea Stallion Book 1. Big Dreams but No Credits. A Space Adventure. By Mystic Alchemist. Copyright 2023-2024 Mystic Alchemist. All rights reserved. Written in Australian English. This book is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places and incidents are either a product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual people living or dead, events or locales is purely coincidental. Cover and text written and assembled by hand without use of artificial intelligence.